Hi guys, welcome to the Untold podcast. Guys, I'm so excited. This is the first, official episode, if we can call it like that. I think what I would do to help my mind, I'm such an organized freak. So I think what we'd do on here, on the Untold platform, is we would have seasons of different topics or different situations for us to sort of discuss. And then each season we would have episodes in it, if that makes sense. And then it just helps us to sort of get to the bottom of things, whatever we decide to talk about on here. So please grab your tea, grab your coffee, and if you're a hard liquor person, grab your alcohol. Whatever it is that you feel comfortable. I just need you to be comfortable with me, wherever you are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. Wherever you are, I just need you to get comfortable. Because I am comfortable, and we're going to dive right into things. Okay, so this segment is called the Think Out Aloud segment. We would basically read what's going on or what's trending on social media, and then we're going to have a thing or two to talk about it. We're going to think out loud. And the reason why I call this segment Think Out Aloud is that sometimes when we come across things, there's certain things that comes to our head, and there's literally a conversation between you and yourself, and you dare not sort of speak out. But since this podcast is called the Untold meaning the things that haven't been told, we're telling it now at the front end of things. Why not think out aloud as well? So we're going to be thinking out aloud in this segment for the next 2-3 minutes. Right, so what's going on? What's trending on socials? I came across this video on Instagram, and it's of a woman who had lost her son. I'm not quite sure. She had other children, so I'm not quite sure if this was her eldest or the youngest. But from the video, I ascertained that the child, her child was 20 years old. So the story basically was the fact that the boy was depressed, and there were signs that the mother saw, I guess. There were signs that the boy exhibited. Now, the signs, no fault through the mother, but it wasn't taken serious from what I ascertained. They tried, her mother and her other siblings tried as much as possible to deal with the signs of depression that the child was displaying. But then I guess they didn't understand the magnitude of the suffering of this boy. And in the video, what they said was, what triggered it was the fact that the boy was not getting along in his college or school. And to make matters worse as well, he had an exams and he failed his exams. And he couldn't believe he failed his exams. So there were your typical signs of depression. So he started isolating himself. He wasn't eating. He kept himself to himself, so on and so forth. And in the video, mother said that she tried her best to sort of, get the boy out of that space. Now, you know where the story is going. One day, the mother woke up to her son hung in the corridor. Now, I can never imagine the pain of this mother. I can never imagine the pain. I can never imagine the kind of thoughts that was running through her head when you see your son hung. So when she came and finally saw her son hung, I guess the rope or whatever he used was so tight that the tongue of the boy was literally long and was dangling out. Now, so this is the sight that the mother came to see. Now, I have no children, and I can only imagine as a mother the kind of pain that she went through. So she quickly rushed the boy to hospital and realized that the doctors and the nurses were not doing anything regarding it. And then she was screaming and asking the nurses and the doctors, why are you not doing anything? Why are you not doing anything? Why are you not doing anything? Only to realize that the boy had passed. So it only literally dawned on her at the hospital when she realized that nobody was attending to the boy. And they were not attending to the boy was because the boy was obviously dead. Now, I want us to think aloud on that. Think aloud on depression. Now, I come from a community where mental health, illness, I don't want to say it's not taken serious, but it's not a priority. It's not something that is discussed a lot in our community. And I want to shed a little light on this. See, depression is real. It's real because it happens in the mind. And you and I know that the mind is a battlefield. The mind is a battlefield. Now, if you're not strong in the mind, whatever battlefield, whatever battle is happening in your mind will eventually overcome you. So we need to really pay attention to these things. We really need to pay attention to these things. It's really sad. It's really, really, really sad. It's sad also because it could have been something that we could easily have sort of prevented. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. Is it something that we could easily have prevented? But I want the thoughts on this story, or the facts of the story, is I want us to discuss in our homes. Let's pay attention to what's going on with our children, with our friends, with our family members, because there is always a battle that is not visible to us that our siblings or our friends are going through. Let us be sensible. Let us be sensitive, to these things. Yeah. Let us have time to really sit down with our close ones, to really sit down with anybody that is connected to you, and let us have a conversation about mental health, our mental status, our mental status. Let us not wait till we see the symptoms of it, right? And even though we see the symptoms, let us treat it as much as possible. Let us not try and brush it off, especially so in the season that we're in. One of the things that I have come to realize is that if you ignore your mental status, if you ignore your mental health, know that it would eventually give up on you. Just as if you give up on your physical health, it would eventually give up on you. So let us try and pay attention to our mental health. And the good news is that it doesn't take that much. It doesn't take that much to treat and pay attention to our mental health. One of the secrets that I have found in life, especially in my life, is that if you really want to know what's going on in somebody's mind, speak to them. Speak to them. If you want to know what's going on in my mind, speak to me. If you want to know what's going on in your sister's or in your brother's life, or in anybody that is connected to you, if you want to know what's going on in their life, just speak to them. Now, the secret, or one of the principles in life that you cannot undo, is that whatever is in a person will come out in speech. And the least is you would see in their actions. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And in plain language, it basically means that whatever is inside a person, it will come out. Okay, so let's use this principle for a second. If I am your friend, I am your sister, I'm part of the people that is connected to you, and you want to know what's going on in my mouth. Now, if you stand at a distance, you will never know what's going on in my life, because I can put a visage, I can put my face on. And to be honest with you, Jessica, I must say I'm very good at that. I am very good at portraying that I am okay. I'm very good at portraying that I am strong. I'm very good at putting on that face to let you know that everything is jolly. But when you get closer to me and then conversate with me and then speak to me, would you realize what's going on the inside? So I have so many friends. The friends that are close to me now always say that nobody will understand you, Jess, until they come and speak to you. Nobody really knows how you are until they get close to you. It's because I am very good at putting on the face. Now, the reason why I am saying this is basically, if we really want to deal with this mental status of our lives, or the mental health issues that is flooding on social media, let me just chip this in. I came across this, is it a meme? It says that if you want to know what man is saying, read the newspaper and watch the news. In other words, if you want to know what's going on in the world, read the newspaper and watch the news. Right, nowadays, in the younger generation, just pay attention to social media. You will know what's trending, you know what's going on, you know what's the mind of man. Because you can see a pattern, you can see the truth that what's going on. But however, if you want to know the mind of God, if you want to know the mind of Christ, read the Bible. Okay, so I just want to dwell on the former part of this meme that spoke volumes to me. So in other words, what I have ascertained in terms of what's going on in the mind of a man, is the fact that we need to pay attention to our mental health or our mental status. Okay. And yes, and one of the ways to really combat this issue is speaking to the person and knowing what's going on in their mind. And one of the things that I have ascertained is obviously speaking to the person. And when you speak to the person, whatever is on the inside comes out. So yeah, you get to know what's going on the inside. You can never know what's going on with a person if you stand at a distance. If you want to overcome somebody, if you want to influence somebody, right? All you have to do is isolate the person from the influence. Shut the world out of them. Close their ears, close their eyes. Close every circle or every avenue of voice that influence that person. And let your voice only be the voice of influence on their lives. Okay? Now, if I was the enemy, that is exactly what I would do. If I was the enemy and I want to conquer somebody, one, I would make sure that I isolate the person from the rest of the voices that may also influence that individual. I would take them away. I will push them away. I would make sure I will put them in a position that my voice and my voice only is what they can hear. Now, because the human faculty is almost like a living organism, it needs a source to move it. It needs a source to motivate it. Just as a vehicle, it needs petrol or diesel to move it. It's the same thing with the human being. It needs a source. Now, if I shut the source or if I shut the source that would influence the person in a positive manner, the human body needs another source to keep it moving. Now, again, if I am the enemy, I will make sure I am the main source. I am the main source that provide this person the motivation to move. And this motivation can never be good, because the motivation is connected to my agenda, which is to kill, to conquer, and to steal. To steal, to kill, and to destroy. That's my agenda. And that is the vibe that you will be connected to. So when you're done shutting the rest of the influences of this person, the other natural step, again, as the enemy, now don't forget that you're not connected to the source of life. You're not connected to the mechanism that creates life, but you're connected to the mechanism that kills, steals, and destroys. That's my 3 aims. Now, I would make sure that the voice that you're hearing would lead you to these aims, to achieve these aims. I will portray every negative thing in your life to ensure that you achieve these aims. Okay? And that's where the talking comes in. Now, let's switch roles. Let's say if I am the one that is affected by this. Let's switch roles. Let's say if I am the one that I have been cornered, right? I've managed to isolate myself. I've managed to shut all manner of influences, and I keep hearing this negative influence. Literally portraying, literally just magnifying all the negative things in my life, all my failures, all the things that brings me down, right? And don't forget, that's the only voice I'm hearing, because every other voice around me have been shut away. That's what I'm hearing. Now, if you see me in that light, or if you see me in that position, and then you come to me and you're conversating with me, the things that I will speak to you about are the things that I am seeing and I'm hearing. So, i.e., if I am going through let's say if one of the things that I'm going through is magnified in my mind, is that I'm a failure, the things that comes out of me would automatically be negative. That's the number one. So it's completely vital that you speak and you conversate with the people around you. Number one principle, whatever is in me will definitely come out. Now, let's say now you have ascertained that, the tone or the voice of my sister or my daughter or my son or my uncle or my aunt, it's not right. What then do you do? The action, or the immediate action after you have ascertained the position that the person stands in, is you have to combat the first step, which was the isolation step. And how you combat is you now then pump the voice of positivity into their lives. Now, it would be very difficult to penetrate into that isolation wall, because at this point, depending on how far the person has gone, will determine how long you pump the positivity into the fortified city, or into the circle of the person, or break down the walls of these things. Before we jump into combating the isolation step, I just want to just stress how important it is to make time to speak. Now, again, if I was the enemy, I will make sure you are too busy, extremely busy, to be aware of what's going on around you. Now, the busyness can be positive as well. The busyness can definitely 100% be positive. The business can definitely be 100% positive. It's not only negative. So this is another trick that I do feel like we fall into. I could be, let's say, a member of a church. I could be a member of a church, and I'm constantly busy in the church, constantly busy. I don't have time for my family. I don't have time for myself. I don't have time for everybody that is connected to me. Now, although what you're doing is extremely good, although what you're doing is sacrifice, but your first call of ministry is the people around you. That's one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn. One of the hardest lessons that I had to learn. Your first call of ministry is the people around you, the people God has placed around you, the people that are connected to you, the people that you influence them. Make time. The power of conversation, never underestimate it. The power of communication, never underestimate it. So especially in this season that we're in, let's pay particular attention to our mental health. The battlefield of the mind. Let's pay close attention to it. So we combat isolation. So let's say that I am so let's just expand on the story of this little boy for a second. One of the things that the mom said was the fact that the boy kept on locking himself in the room. For me, that's red flags. Red flag. Listen, we all have an element of mental health. And if care is not taken, we can easily fall into that pit. And it's a very slippery fall. And nobody's above it. As long as you're living in this world, as long as you're living in this world, you're not above it. So how you combat the isolation bit is, as soon as you know that your friend is isolating themselves, please, or even if it's you, sometimes it's a lot harder when it's you, because you have to gather strength, you have to gather energy, you have to gather the courage to come out of the funk. Sometimes we are able to come out of it. Sometimes we can come out of it. Sometimes we have the strength, but sometimes we also need the strength of the others. Well, that's why I do believe the scripture tells us that never neglect the assembly of the brethren. In other words, never neglect the power of surrounding yourself with people and people with the same mindset, the same belief system as you. That is essentially what that scripture is. Never underestimate the power of surrounding yourself with people that have the same mindset and belief system as you. Because it's not every day that you are able to pick yourself up and go. It's not every day that you are strong in the mind and in your physical strength. It's not every day. It's not every day that you are strong to pick up yourself. But when you have the people that surround you with the same mindset and the same belief, and they notice that there's something different about my sister, there's something different about my daughter, there's something different about my husband, there's something different about my wife, I then step in and help you come out of that funk. So in this episode, I just wanted to touch on the isolating trick, the isolating factor of depression, and combating the isolation step with the power of communication and making time for ourselves. Okay, so we have come then to the last segment of this podcast, which is the nugget of wisdom. We should all be reminded that we're all subjected to depression. And it's not what makes you weak. We're all subject to it. And when you are in that funk, it doesn't mean that you're weak, but it's how you come out of it. It's how you come out of that space is what we want to draw attention to. One, when we see ourselves or the people around us in isolation, let us combat it by making time and conversating with them. The power of communication. Let's find out what's going on in the mind and then erase that. Because most of the time, the things that you would find out, the things that you would ascertain from that conversation, 99% of the time it's going to be negative. So then what we do is we cover or we wipe away those negative thoughts, negative actions by pumping positive vibes into them, by pumping positive words into them, by reminding them who they are in Christ, by reminding them the will of God, by reminding them the promises of God concerning their life. Do not neglect the assembly of the brethren. Do not forget that you are around the people that you're around with for a reason. So therefore, it's completely vital that you are very selective of the people around you. It's the season for us to pay attention to our mental health.